Welcome to our TaroWorks webinar. My name is Elaine Chang, and I'm the Director of Market Development and Customer Success here at TaroWorks. And we're really excited that you could join us today. So one of the processes that we at TaroWorks have heard from organizations who have field agents working in the last mile is that these field agents are often tasked with helping people, so sometimes end beneficiaries, sometimes customers, redeem vouchers. So what do I mean by a voucher? For aid organizations, sometimes this is a voucher that beneficiaries can turn in for cash or supplies. For social enterprise, this could be a coupon or some sort of voucher for a discounted product or service. But essentially, I mean like a piece of paper or a code or something that holds value. So what we wanted to focus on today in this webinar is even though the idea of offering vouchers or subsidies is good in theory, what does it take to actually implement them in the field? That means that there needs to be process around how people go about redeeming them. How does management account for them so that you can make sure that the right people are benefiting? So all of these kind of operational things we wanted to look at today. So we're super excited for today's guest. We have Dan Clark, the Information Systems Developer for IDE. He's joined us today, so super happy for him to be here. Welcome, Dan.
Hello, Elaine. Thanks. I'll start the presentation when I get the screen.
Yep. I just wanted to do a quick introduction of IDE for everyone. So IDE has been using TaroWorks since 2013, using the mobile app for their field agents so that they can manage a whole range of activities across many of their programs globally, even when they're offline. So if you missed previous webinars, they've also presented about how their marketing teams coordinate with their latrine suppliers to make sure that orders get delivered in optimally. And they've also talked about the importance of training sales staff. And so you can find all of their previous webinars on our YouTube channel. But today, we're happy to have Dan here to share another aspect of their sanitation marketing program around how they've digitized their cash voucher process. So excited to hear more about that. So welcome, Dan. Before I actually switch over, I'd like to go over a couple housekeeping rules with the audience. So by default, everybody is on mute, and the session is being recorded. As I mentioned, you can find these recordings on YouTube, our TaroWorks YouTube channel. We'll also recap it and issue a blog about it. We'll also email all of you the recording as well. If you do have questions, just raise your hand in the little window or type the question into the Q&A chat window, and I'll be moderating these. We'll be pausing kind of halfway through the discussion to see if there are any questions. Otherwise, we'll take questions at the end as well. So at this point, let me switch over to Dan. Dan, are you there? And oh, I can see your screen.
Yes.
Perfect.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dan Clark. I'm the Information Systems Developer with IDE. And I'm here to tell you about how we're using TaroWorks and Salesforce to more equitably reach all Cambodians with sanitation products by connecting clients with targeted cash vouchers. IDE stands for International Development Enterprises. We take a market-based approach to addressing poverty because it's our belief that entrepreneurs are everywhere. IDE is a global nonprofit that uses market-based solutions to improve the incomes and livelihoods of millions of people around the world. IDE's efforts span 13 countries, encompassing 4 social enterprises and employing 1,000 people directly, and many more indirectly through our market-based approaches in agriculture, water, sanitation, hygiene, and financing. So why do we focus on sanitation as one of our critical sectors? That's because diarrheal disease causes more death in children under 5 than malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV combined. This is a true example of where markets can help address one of the world's most intractable public health problems, while positively impacting incomes in the community. Today, I'll be focusing on Cambodia, which has a population of around 15 million people, 8 million of which teeter just above the poverty line. One bad crop or one expensive illness will put them back under that line. And with more than half the rural population still without a toilet, the risk of disease is a serious everyday peril. To address this challenge and help change the outlook for Cambodia, IDE designs new sanitation solutions and helps local businesses build and deliver them to families and communities. Using Salesforce, we're able not only to record our work, but also utilize near real-time data to enable automation and make decisions effectively. By pairing IDE's rigorous design methodology along with strong systems approaches, we have reached an impressive milestone in the past decade. Since 2011, we've sold helped sell more than 300,000 latrines, reaching over 2 million people and generating an annual household benefit of around $83 per family. Through the same rigorous design process and time spent closely working with local entrepreneurs, IDE's team was able to sell an impressive amount of latrines in its first iteration of Sanitation Marketing Scale-Up, reaching over 100,000 households. This was achieved because the team successfully addressed the basic challenges of supply and demand and created an effective sales strategy that was implemented and honed to enable sales agents to compel clients to buy latrines and therefore drive up demand. While the critical role of local masons in the supply chain was identified, resulting in a significant training push for business skills and record keeping, and for the transition of those masons into latrine business operators, or what we call LBOs. However, despite these encouraging results, in 2014, the team took a look at the limitations of running and expanding operations without timely and accurate insight into activities throughout the provinces we worked in. Additionally, we realized the supply chain was too often lagging far behind sales demand, as sales staff and masons or LBOs were paired directly together in siloed teams. In order to address these early challenges, IDE initially brought TaroWorks and Salesforce into the picture, allowing for full transparency into the sales and delivery process and more effective distribution of orders to LBOs for manufacturing around the 7 provinces in which we worked. My colleague, Gordon Lau, built a TaroWorks job for recording sales activities and pushed them to Android devices. Armed with these Android devices in TaroWorks, sales agents logged every order, including photographs and GPS coordinates of the sale, and then synced them back to Salesforce. Their supply coordinators, using Salesforce's partner licenses, then were able to assign batches of orders to the best LBOs available for manufacturing based on their current backlog and historic performance. By 2016, our sanitation marketing efforts in Cambodia resulted in over 250,000 sales of improved pour flush latrines across 7 provinces. Additionally, since the program's inception, IDE had seen a latrine coverage across the provinces nearly double, from 29% to 56%. However, in spite of the overall efficacy of those sanitation marketing efforts, IDE recognized that market actors are not always necessarily incentivized to reach the poorest segments of the market. In order to identify these gaps, IDE conducted market research to evaluate the client base. The first key finding was that indeed the percentage of poor households that purchased latrines was significantly lower than the overall share of the population, almost 10 percentage points lower. Second was that traditional financing mechanisms such as microfinance institution loans only bring so much demand while driving up the program costs and increasing the complexity of sales processes. The third key finding from research suggested that the clients who are classified as poor are often unable or unwilling to pay the full market price for a high quality latrine. And finally, from our own sales data, we could see that although the cost per unit decreased significantly from 2011 to 2015, once we began efforts to reach more difficult segments of the market, our costs notably increased and our cost effectiveness went down. To address this problem, IDE explored two mechanisms for cutting down the barriers to latrine purchases by poor households: targeted subsidies and sanitation financing. To determine the impact of these two mechanisms on latrine uptake among both poor and non-poor households, IDE and its research partner, Causal Design, implemented a pilot study funded by the Australian Aid Organization, utilizing randomly controlled trial studies. The evaluation design put poor households in treatment villages, and they were offered partial subsidies, financing, and cash-only options, while the control villages were offered only financing or cash-only purchase options. In total, the study included 166 villages, and between control groups and treatment groups, nearly 1,200 sales were captured and analyzed in the study. One important aspect of the study and what made this research possible was the Cambodian government's national system for identifying low-income households in order to determine eligibility for subsidies. This program, known as ID Poor, assesses the wealth of each citizen and places them in one of three categories. The first being ID Poor 1, which is the poorest. Second, ID Poor 2, which is a slightly better off group. And then the remainder of citizens fall in the non-poor category. Using this system, for a latrine that has a market price of $56 US, vouchers were provided to ID Poor 1 households representing a $25 discount, while the ID Poor 2 customers received a $12.50 discount, roughly half, or exactly half. As the pilot program was built on top of IDE's existing program efforts, we made use of existing workflows within Salesforce to record sales within the RCT based on a modified TaroWorks sales job. This in turn created an order record in our system and allowed for easy follow-up by our pilot program staff. Although the tracking of subsidy and redemption of credits by the LBOs was handled on paper, Salesforce made it easy to record these efforts after the fact for each order. And more importantly, it allowed for accountability for each of the teams working with the study via dashboards. The study found uptake rates among poor households that were offered subsidies increased substantially, while at the same time, demand was maintained among unsubsidized households. Furthermore, we also found the increase in sales and subsequent economies of scale for our program resulted in lower cost per latrine based on the effective targeting. All encouraging results. This study provides promising evidence that targeted subsidies can increase sanitation coverage among poor households and the overall community. It also showed us that well-targeted subsidies do not need to have market distortion effects. And also, targeted subsidies may even provide a cost-effective complement to financing. And then finally, as an interesting anecdotal takeaway, we also discovered through the research that tracking vouchers with only a paper trail was not scalable. So a digital solution was not only desired, but required. Now it's time for us to look at how we determine the implementation of this program. After the result of a lot of hard work and quite a bit of testing, we came up with a complex looking workflow, but it had 4 simple steps. First, the program's head office generates cash vouchers, which are given to qualified clients to purchase latrines at a discount, and then sends them to be printed at the province level. Second, field managers assign vouchers down the chain using TaroWorks all the way to sales agents. Third, those same sales agents distribute the vouchers to qualified clients based on Cambodia's existing ID poor identification program. And then finally, the field managers verify documentation and approve payment to the LBOs in Salesforce based on the vouchers that they turn in and successful delivery of products. So Elaine, I just wanted to pause here, see if there are any questions at this point.
I don't see any, but if you have any questions, do type it into the question window. I had a question, Dan.
Yes.
How long did the process, or like how long did the research take?
The research was, I believe, over a 12-month period back in 2016.
Okay, yeah, those are really interesting results. Shocking how much, like very significant looks like the data.
Yes.
And then did you end up keeping the same amount of the discount?
I don't know the exact figures from the study. I do know that as part of the pilot, there were actually a number of price points that were given. It wasn't just those 2, but those were had the most benefit. Those 2 particular price points. I think the study for each category tried 3 different levels, and we definitely can follow up later with what those exact amounts were.
Cool. Okay, great. Thanks. I don't see any questions, so you can go ahead.
Okay, great. All right, so now it's time for us to see how the system all fits together based on that workflow we just saw. As the team didn't have time to wait for a Visualforce development cycle, we utilized an application called G-Connector, which is a helpful Google Sheets add-on to allow us to batch create records which would represent vouchers in our system. In another tab within the same Google Sheet, our Phnom Penh head finance officer only had to add in 3 pieces of information for each voucher. First was the batch number. Second, the name of the sanitation financing coordinator in charge of the batch. And then third, a standard voucher code number. The sheet then syncs automatically back to Salesforce periodically, thanks to the G-Connector add-on, and creates the set of voucher records. They're all set with an initial status of issued. Our finance manager then only has to reach out via phone, email, text, whichever method works for them, to the provincial offices to let them know the vouchers are created. At this point, the associates who are responsible for vouchers in each province, the Sanitation Finance Coordinators, or SFCs, can follow a couple easy steps to print physical vouchers ready for field use. This is possible through another nifty Google Sheets tool, which automatically generates a table of printable and easily readable QR codes per province each time a batch is created. Once the Sanitation Financing Coordinator confirms the number of vouchers to print, all they do is use a preset print function. Once the vouchers are printed, in order to update the status of the vouchers for traceability, the Sanitation Financing Coordinator then logs into Salesforce using their partner account and updates the vouchers to a second status of printed. This is achieved through a little bit of Visualforce, which allowed the partner users to mass edit a set of vouchers based on a date printed field. Now that the vouchers are in the hands of the Sanitation Financing Coordinators, they're still just the start of their journey. And this is where the TaroWorks app comes in to enable the most effective way to pass the vouchers between staff while also maintaining traceability the entire way. In order to do this, we utilize 3 jobs and 4 levels of stakeholders. The vouchers first go from the sanitation financing coordinators to a set of district level sales managers, or DSMs. Then from those DSMs to the sales agents, and finally from those sales agents to the clients and eventually the latrine business owners who will eventually cash them in. The first job, titled SFC Distribution of Vouchers to the DSM, records the exact vouchers given to a DSM. To start the job, the user simply taps on the name of the job, selects the option New Job, and then selects the specific form to conduct. Next, the SFC will see a list of DSMs, or district sales managers, that report to them and selects the correct one. In this case, I'll do it under my name. They then confirm the details under the selection by clicking Next, and see the DSM's information successfully input into the form's first 2 questions. Now to the heart of the tool. The SFC can either preemptively add enough rows to a table to capture all of the vouchers, or simply press the Get Barcode button to start adding the codes one by one. At this point, a dialog box pulls up and the SFC taps Get Barcode again in order to temporarily enable the phone's camera for scanning barcodes. Once in the barcode scanner app, the SFC simply focuses the camera on the QR code, which will register the voucher within seconds. After confirming the correct code was scanned, the SFC presses the next button again to scan another code, or the OK button once the final code is registered. Within the table, the SFC can add as many vouchers as they would like, replace codes already entered, or remove codes that are duplicates. Once the list is complete, they simply again press Next to move on. And after viewing a simple closing message of the survey, they press Next one last time and are able to complete the job. Once this job syncs, the voucher records are updated automatically to a new status of in-district sales manager custody, and they're now available for that district sales manager to pass along. In the hands of the district sales manager, they need to distribute the vouchers to the sales agents, which they oversee in any given district. To do this, we've created a nearly identical job that allows them to select the job's name, in this case, distribution of vouchers to sales agents. And then they can select the sales agent they are meeting with and confirm their information. After hitting Next, the voucher code table pulls up again, and the district sales manager simply enters each code as the SFC did before. Each code is scanned in the same manner, and as many codes as are needed can be used. Once all the vouchers are distributed, they swipe or tap Next on the final message page and then mark the job complete again. With only 10 overall steps, the voucher records are updated within a few seconds each. And TaroWorks, after syncing, again, automatically updates to a new status of in sales agent custody. So now we've reached the point at which the vouchers are linked to an already existing sales process. For the sales team, it was critical that the vouchers not only allow for further project reach, but also not impede the work that they're already doing. Fortunately, with the QR codes already in hand and TaroWorks at the ready, adding vouchers to the order added just mere seconds to the overall Salesforce sales process. Excuse me. As you may recall from my colleague Gordon's great work in our previous sanitation programs, we already had excellent TaroWorks jobs for logging sales. And these flexible jobs allowed us to simply plug in 3 new question pages into a form and seamlessly link issued vouchers with specific orders. First, near the end of the sales job, the sales agent is asked whether the sale involves a subsidy, a simple yes/no question. If and only if the sale is a subsidy sale, the client's ID4 card information is taken down. Then the job prompts the sales agent to confirm the ID4 status by taking a picture of that card, and prompts the scanning of a QR code, which is on a paper given to that client. A second or so later, the sales agent confirms the correct number and then clicks next again to go back to the standard sales workflow. Through this barcode function, sales agents don't need to worry about user error or updating the status, as it's updated automatically to committed. So now as the voucher is in the hands of the client and the order has been synced to Salesforce as a new record, let's take another look at the voucher workflow in a different form. We see the steps of the process we've already gone through in 2 and 3, but we still have 1 left. Step 4 is where the process is taken back out of TaroWorks and handled directly in Salesforce and on the ground. Zooming into step 4, we can see the different actions taken by the program managers in order to ensure successful delivery of the product and redemption of the voucher. The first step is for the voucher status to be set to committed, which has already happened automatically thanks to Salesforce, or thanks for TaroWorks and Salesforce. The second step is for the Sanitation Financing Coordinator to verify that ID4 card number. Assuming it's valid, the third step is to mark that status to approved in the Salesforce system, and then pass the job off to another associate, a sanitation business advisor, who helps facilitate the assignment of an order to a latrine business operator and follow up on delivery. The fifth step is when the Sanitation Finance Coordinator is notified of a pending delivery and updates the status of the voucher to claimed. The Sanitation Business Advisor then, in a second to last step, confirms the delivery with the customer directly and updates the status of the order to delivered, which in turn notifies the Sanitation Financing Coordinator to have the finance team pay the LBO and change the status of the voucher to redeemed. Now let's see this process in action with a quick look at a live set of Salesforce data. Once an order with a voucher is committed, our Sanitation Financing Coordinator is alerted within a day via list view, which they're expected to check. In this case, we're looking at the committed vouchers for the Sanitation Financing Coordinator under my own name. In this list view, I would see all vouchers which are under my purview that are in the status committed. In this case, because it's a test, it's only 1. The first step is just for that Sanitation Financing Coordinator to follow this order link to go ahead and check one of the photos that's taken during the order in a customer detail section. I scroll down the page, I see that under the customer information section, we have all of the ID4 information in addition to a photo that we can enlarge to verify the status of the client. And here we can see it's indeed ID4 2. The Sanitation Financing Coordinator only has to come back to the list view that they originally entered and modify the PFC check field to approved or in certain cases declined, at which point they would void the voucher and stop the process. But in this case, we're satisfied and we'll say approved. Hit save, refresh this list, and then move on to the next step. With the voucher approved, there are a few items that happen completely outside of Salesforce, and that is that the Sanitation Business Advisor will assign the LBO, and outside of the voucher process, they actually assign the LBO in Salesforce. Here we can do this in a quick step here, hit save. And now we have an LBO that's able to be linked to this order. They follow the process outside of Salesforce through assignment to the delivery and payment by the client, who will hand both cash and the voucher back to the LBO, who will then notify the ID staff again, and at which point the sanitation finance coordinator will come in and indicate that a voucher has moved to the new status of claimed. To do this, the sanitation financing coordinator only has to go to the new list view of approved vouchers, the 6th step in the process, and enter the claim date. In this case, we'll say the claim was a few days ago. Again, save the record, refresh the list, and that record no longer registers. This status update will indicate to that same sanitation business advisor that I'll refresh this page, that the order is ready to be checked for delivery as it's claimed. Normally they investigate by showing up at the client's house to actually confirm at which point the delivery occurred and whether the installation was successful. Given this, they will update the date of delivery. We'll say it was yesterday. Save the record. And here we can see the order is now updated to delivered with the still status of claimed. At this point, the finance team will actually check the claimed list of vouchers and check to see which are claimed and in delivered status for the order. At which point they can come in, enter the date at which that happened, save that, and refresh one more time. And the client is now happy with the new toilet. The LBO has their money. Once they're in the redeem status, the finance team will automatically pay via mobile money, and the staff can be proud of a job well done. So now on to the feedback loops that make this system possible. The program management team takes reporting very seriously in our sanitation program. They are focused on efficiency and process improvement. That's why the team members regularly utilize and take action based off of Salesforce data. Through Salesforce reporting function, the team is able to stay on top of all aspects of the voucher process. From the voucher redeemed report, our program management and sanitation finance coordinators can see what we've already paid out. And in this case, you can see we've paid out an impressive 763 million Cambodian rial in vouchers. This equates to around 200,000 US dollars. Next, the vouchers claimed report gives our finance team an insight into what cash outflows they should expect in the next several weeks. Here, just over 35 million reals, or around 10,000 US dollars. The voucher cycle report points us to the fact that we have a large portion of outstanding vouchers in the status of approved. This could potentially indicate a set of delays in completed latrine deliveries, something for our sanitation business advisors to look into and potentially take action on. And finally, in our order status versus voucher report, or order status versus vouchers report, our program manager, Mr. Duguay, can easily look at the program's progress in meeting the ID4 goals. This is a complex report to be sure, but its chart on the next page will help to bring the big picture into focus. As you can see from this chart, back in 2015, when our team began tracking the classification of all of our clients, ID4 1 and 2 purchases represented less than 20% of overall sales. Once we introduced the cash vouchers program throughout the project in 2018, we saw a rapid improvement to over 30% in 2019. And today in 2020, so far in the year, we're seeing over 50% of the sales going to the 2 classes of ID4 households. This is something that we see as a great success, and although we don't know if 50% will be the level we maintain throughout the year, it's clear through the trends on this that the program has been a success for us, and these reports allow us to more accurately distribute vouchers each quarter. They help us to reduce risk and improve financial management. Through this process and Salesforce's reporting functions, it's easy for our team to report on any question they have. Our management team in Phnom Penh knows where every order comes from, whether it has a voucher or not, and if that voucher has been redeemed. We know that we are reaching the poorest citizens in Cambodia, and we know how well we're doing it. Now, although we're very happy with the program's progress, IDE is an organization that's always on the lookout for improvement. That's why we have a few improvements we hope to bring to this process in the new year. The largest one is for a visual force template to guide our finance manager through the process to batch create vouchers within Salesforce, eliminating the need for third-party applications. Other ideas include email alerts to team members when they have outstanding actions to take with vouchers or open orders, which would be particularly useful in the voucher approval and redemption phase, where, as you probably saw, a lot of interaction occurs outside any Salesforce process as of now. And lastly, at least for the time being, is to take advantage of TaroWorks' functionality to push client and latrine images to our TaroWorks enabled devices for better on-location verification when working with existing clients. Before I wrap things up, I also wanted to leave you all with a few helpful takeaways. First is to define your process clearly. When working with project teams or departments in your org, do your absolute best to define each step of the workflow that you are trying to improve. This will provide a grounding point for you and your clients or colleagues and make it easier to determine not only what fields need to be created, but also what permission sets users should have and where automation can help accelerate business steps. The second is to consider all exceptions. This is another offshoot of having a clear and relatively detailed flow of activities with your project team. Each action item and decision point or user input on that flow is an opportunity to ask questions about how the system should handle unique cases. And lastly, design for expandability. Some programs stay relatively small, while other programs never fully get off the ground in either implementation or the use of mobile data collection. However, when projects are successful, they often scale up their needs faster than you can redesign a data model. As you make decisions about both TaroWorks jobs and the Salesforce app they link to, always ask what happens if a new service needs to be provided, a new geographic area needs to be covered, or if a new stakeholder gets involved. These will help you determine how many objects to create and how your jobs should map to them. Thank you all very much for your time today. I hope you found this session helpful. And if you have any questions about business process improvements or you're thinking about a voucher program yourself, I would love to talk with you and feel free to reach out to the email address right there, or check out our website there, the washmarkets.idglobal.org, for more information on this aspect of sanitation marketing and other innovative tools we have inside and out of Salesforce.
Great, Dan, thank you so much. That was super interesting. I love the level of detail that it seems like you guys have, and yeah, just really insightful reports, it looks like. So yeah, congratulations on the program, and thanks for sharing. So yeah, keep the questions coming. I have a couple here that I'll ask you, Dan. As a reminder to folks, if you'd rather talk through your question, you can also raise your hand and I can unmute you. So Dan, I'm starting with a couple questions here. Did your team at IDE evaluate the outcomes or impact of the latrines themselves? Can you share any of that?
Yes, we've done a number of rigorous evaluations throughout the life of the project. It's one of the benefits of this Cambodia program is that it's actually been a series of, I think, 4 grants now that have each had a decent component of basic M&E and also one-off evaluations throughout the project. So that's something that is right there on that website, which I can share out with people. But that's a key part, and this whole effort with vouchers came out of that exact initiative to evaluate our work pretty consistently.
Great. I had a question myself. I get this question a lot in terms of like very operational, but like, what kind of printer do you use for this? And is there like a kind of paper that works best? Because do you guys have any, do you deal with people who lose their vouchers, that kind of thing, or things fall apart? What do you think works best?
So in this case, we had considered at the outset of this project, or this modification to the project, actually sticking QR codes, printing them on laminate paper or laminating paper that they were printed on, and actually sticking them on houses. But we discovered through either just talking with clients or from actual trial and error that just wasn't going to be a good solution. I don't think people necessarily want codes on their home, nor would it stand the test of time unless they're really expensive. And many times, when you initially do the order, there's no latrine to stick a code to. So we've actually decided to use, I think it's a little bit of heavy duty paper, but it's relatively normal printers that were available within Cambodia to print the vouchers. And then in the case that a voucher was lost, a client or an LBO could reach out and we would void that number and reissue a voucher connected with that order. So I think we found that rather than creating a really robust physical papers that still may get lost, just having the system be able to void out numbers. So there's no chance of double payment, but they're easy to replace.
Great, thanks. Okay, we have a question from Donnie. How complex was another one just came in. How complex was integrating TaroWorks with Salesforce?
I think that so from a general standpoint, I would say it is, for somebody who's an administrator, it's a simple but a very thought-provoking process. So, if you're just starting out and you have a survey and you only have 10 questions and you're mapping it to the accounts object on Salesforce, very, very easy. If you're, creating a very long survey and you're basing it off of custom objects and you want business processes behind that, that's going to be quite a bit more thought process. I would really recommend kind of what IDE's experience has been, which is finding a great initial use case, whether it be in monitoring and evaluation or simple kind of operational benefit that you can take a program like a simple sales of latrines or sales of what we work in as pumps, and just take a kind of a pilot and see what your team does with the data, make sure you have good processes on the ground. And we've found that when you have good processes on the ground, TaroWorks helps out immensely. You only run into problems when there isn't a workflow already set up, i.e. the team is kind of winging it for their data collection without TaroWorks or Salesforce.
Great, thanks, Dan. I think that's right. I would echo a lot of that. It could be really easy, but it really depends on the types of processes that you want to build in, what kind of reports you want to look at the end of the day. It does require some planning, or it could require some planning to just make sure that all of these reports are easily runnable at the end of the day. Okay, so another question is, Dan, how do you determine the poverty level of the customer, and how do you manage the vouchers with different values?
So that was one of the key takeaways from the research, is that the ID poor system was, and this is the kind of the unique case of Cambodia, especially compared to certain countries. I'm currently in Ethiopia, and they have a program that's somewhat similar called PSNP, which identifies households that are particularly vulnerable. However, it's only present in certain areas of the country, and Cambodia is unique in that case. It's pretty much countrywide that this program exists, and it happens to be quite reliable. So that is probably the biggest challenge. That question's a good one, because without being in Cambodia or another country has a similar program already set up, that would be a particular challenge. I know in our Ghana program, that is something we've worked to address with finding creative ways to see which clients are creditworthy and which are not. Some of that includes simple questions and looking at mobile payment history, and in other cases, we've actually tried to tap into psychographic data. So without a government system to rely on, it is quite a bit more difficult, but it is possible. It's something that maybe we'll have to do another session on our program in Ghana, which my colleague Gordon also worked on.
Great, thanks. We have another question here. How does IDE use Salesforce in the process of producing impact research and evaluations?
So Salesforce, when it comes to the evaluation side, we have a few instances where we've created custom objects to house data for evaluations or link evaluations to existing clients. More often, though, we will use TaroWorks in cases that are not necessarily one-off, but are maybe one-off for a project at least. Baselines, midlines, endlines. We oftentimes, based on the familiarity with the M&E staff on the project, will use TaroWorks kind of in a more simple format in which we develop the survey and don't go ahead and map it to the database, and actually just use it as a traditional kind of ODK, where we just take the CSV file and they can then go and use that in R or Stata for statistical regressions. But TaroWorks has been incredibly helpful because, as I'm sure many of you know, one of the biggest benefits is not necessarily having a database there, but the data validation and the ability to kind of guide your enumerators through a process. And so TaroWorks, just alone for that side of it, is really a time saver and a godsend.
Wow, so glad to hear that, Dan. Great, thanks. And then finally, this is a multi-part question, or I guess many questions. So let me just start with this one. How did you deal with fraud within the system? Do you have any instances of dealing with that?
That's a very good question. So we built the system to indicate fraud, meaning that, and one of the reports I didn't show is just because it would have been repetitive, is we have a report for every status along the way. And if there is a voucher or a set of vouchers that, let's say, is stuck in the printed phase, that's an indication that something's gone wrong there. More often than not, it's that, let's say, if there was a sheet of vouchers printed and one of them fell under the table, that can happen before it's cut into individual vouchers. So it would remain in that category. Another case could be indicative that somebody grabbed a sheet of vouchers and walked off with them, which is a big problem because they are worth cash. But that's where Salesforce comes in, because we not only know where the voucher is in its own stages, once it's in the hands of our sales staff and then goes committed, meaning it's connected to an order, that order has photos tied with it, a GPS location, and allows us to actually go and verify that there's a product associated with this exact voucher. And I know that there is an audit process in place with the program in general, and I'm not sure how the voucher system's connected in with that quite yet, but the voucher process was specifically designed to be auditable, the same as a regular order. There was a second part to that?
Yeah, I would just sort of add on that I think one of the benefits of digitizing is to have that traceability, so that, yeah, you can see whose hands things are in, and like how things change hands, and so on. I think on another note, kind of a follow-on question was, is there any whistleblower function for accountability?
So I can speak to this more on the organizational level. IDE does have a whistleblower policy, and I think our IDE, I'm almost 100% confident that not only does the overall organization, but our IDE Cambodia program has a specific locally contextualized whistleblower program. So I'm not sure that the voucher program has a whistleblower element built right into the middle of it. I think, to your point, the traceability of things, the fact that the team is managing a voucher, I know that we get an alert every time, even at the administrator level, when somebody tries to duplicate a voucher to be used for another order, which in every case that I've seen so far has been just an error of the user, not fraud, but it is the same kind of indication. But the whistleblower program is in our instance, is at the institutional level. It's something that fortunately we haven't had to rely on too often, but it's in place and has served us well.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, and then this is, I think, the last question, unless there are any others waiting to be asked. Get those in now. But the last question is, do you have a help desk function for people with questions about the program?
So I'll take that one way, and then Elaine, if you want to ask me a different perspective, I can answer that after. I'm assuming that is coming from a internal issues standpoint, and we're actually, interestingly enough, working with the team right now to roll out and finalize a case system that is partially run through TaroWorks, partially run through email to case, and then finally has a phone number that staff or customers can call and log every case within Salesforce. It's something that we have, the phone number we've always had for clients, but the rest of it for employees and sales agents, we have this new element of cases within Salesforce to track any issues that are going on, all the way to somebody who wants to, instead of waiting for a sales agent to come by, either call in or email the program to ask for a purchase. So that's also something we've done in our Ghana program for much the same purposes of making sure that everyone from internal stakeholders to clients can ask any questions they want or report any issues that they see.
Very cool. So I can't speak for IDE, but in terms of other clients that we've worked with on sort of help desk functionality, obviously Salesforce has very good functionality just out of the box, just them being Salesforce. But we also have clients who are using TaroWorks. So, you know, if they use Salesforce's cases 90% of the time, but sometimes you lose connectivity. TaroWorks is a good backup for tracking calls that come in and handling those. We also work with some organizations who have like an SMS text help function that goes directly into Salesforce as well. So many different options here, and yeah, all possible depending on what you're looking for. So I think that's the last question. I don't see any more coming in, and I think we're just at times perfectly. So I'll call it for now. You have the websites and email addresses there on the screen. So if you do have anything to follow up with, do reach out. And with that, Dan, thank you so much for sharing all of these insights and the results. It's just fascinating, and we're really excited for the work that you do, and we're happy that we're able to work with you on it.
All right, well, thank you everyone for your time. I was happy to share, and look forward to working with TaroWorks more in the future.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.